sir. No shoes this year?
No. A little casual.
Okay, we are ready to get started. If you would, well, you know the routine. We'll start right here.
Hey, Coach. Seth Austin, ABC 3340
Hey, Seth.
here in town. I stepped in to listen to you in the big room, after Alabama got done, and I have to laugh how you said, you don't have to ask me about suspending somebody, for week one. I won't call it a shot, but I will say, not having that on your mind, does that allow you to come here and be more candid and have more fun at media days?
See, no, that's how stuff gets started. I did not mean that at all. I was told that when I got out of the room that it might be perceived as that. I was going more off of one of the things that I learned as a young coach. I had the benefit of being under Barry Alvarez's tutelage, and when we do weekly press conferences, when the coaches would have a conference call, he would have me listen to all the other coaches. When we went to Big Ten media days, I listened to all the other coaches that went ahead of me, and so I heard all the questions they were getting, and I could tell, obviously, Dan had a situation yesterday he had to deal with, and a couple other people, and then somebody asked me earlier today several times, Coach, not to have any players that are in a speculation of being under suspension as a relief. I don't know. I don't have that problem. You know what I mean? This year, now life could change in a hurry. That wasn't meant as a shot, and I hope you'll believe me in that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just speaking the truth that I don't have that situation, so it's something I don't have to worry about. But that's exactly how sometimes these things get started.
Hey, Coach. Joe, WBMA TV in Birmingham. Michigan canceling its series with you guys in favor of Notre Dame. Is that something that you take personally when something like that happens?
I got to admit, the first time that I heard that it may happen, I was upset just because I was looking forward to playing them. I understand everybody's got to make decisions. Everybody's got to do what they got to do. I got a tremendous respect for Jim and their AD. I've known for a while now that I like how they handle their business. I think Jim's doing an unbelievable job of branding Michigan, and by a result of that also, the Big Ten and different things. But on the flip side of it, I got to worry about my house, and like I said to Jeff, I said, this isn't a good deal. We don't like it, but I can see how the outside world wants to see Michigan play Notre Dame. I get that. It's hard to erase so many years of history, but I'm trying to create history. I tell our players all the time, history goes both ways. It's really fun to learn about it and read about it, but I prefer to write it myself. And that's what they're beginning to do. They're beginning to do these things that are allowing us to write our own little bit of history, to be an 08 SEC team, to be a 2-6 SEC team, to be a 5-3 team that was on the knocking on the door of those three losses. We get it, but I don't. I'm probably at 36. I might have got a little bit of red and pissed off, but I think now I just kind of roll with the punches to get it. We'll take that $2 million. I don't think we're going to have a Cabo satellite camp. I don't think my AD is going to approve that, but maybe a little weekend in Vegas. I don't know. The part that I'm really interested in is I want to find someone of caliber to put into that spot because we need it and to fit within compliance of it. I know the SEC said they give us a waiver, but I ain't into waivers. I want to play someone. I want to have our kids excited to play someone too. So that's good.
Right here to your
Tom
right.
Menino, WVTM 13 in Birmingham. Every coach is different. Some are more buttoned down, some are more outspoken. You certainly tend to be more on the more outspoken side. And you already mentioned, too, just a second ago about, I was just telling the truth.
Right.
Do you take pride in kind of, for lack of a better term, shooting from the hip, saying what you believe, and just kind of also have a little bit of fun as well when it comes to talking to us?
Yeah, I would much rather, everybody, one of the sessions earlier today was a reporter had these 20 rapid-fire questions, and you're supposed to answer, and they said, a root canal or SEC Media Days? And I said, SEC Media Days, and they kind of thought I was going to take the other. And I just, kind of like I tell our players when they're coming over to visit to do this thing, I got three. Brooksy doesn't love the media. Sprink isn't a very outspoken person. Now, Dietrich, you probably haven't been able to shut him up. But, I tell those guys, if you come over here as a pain or you coming over here not expecting to enjoy it, you will not enjoy any minute of it. But if I come over here with the attitude that I don't want to do it or I don't want to be here, you're going to take that and compound it, times 1,000. So I'd much rather enjoy it, have a good time with it. I would much rather have a great relationship with the media than a poor relationship with the media. I think you guys have a business that you're in, I have a business I'm in. The more we can work together, the better the product. So there's a lot of positive to try and engage and enjoy the moment. But it really gets down to kind of like this TV series that we're putting on, and it's going to be released in July. I'm not doing it for anything for me. I'm doing it for exposure for our program, for the Arkansas Razorbacks, to build our notoriety, to try and erase the 50 years of history I just mentioned, try and get Arkansas on a bigger and national scale. But also just it's being, I don't know how to be anybody else, and sometimes truth gets you in trouble because people are going to take that you meant it to apply to a different area, and it really doesn't. And in today's world, everybody just wants to comment on it rather than find out where the text of the dynamic of the conversation is really getting to. So I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me every day. I don't know how to be anybody else. If I have success or if I have failure, I know I want to be off of what I know, not off of what I tried to be.
Coach Bruce Marshall from Sports Byline USA. You guys have cut back the games of Little Rock, and I think you just got Alcorn there this year. Last year's Toledo, and then you lost the year before there. Is that become a little bit of a distraction, and what's the future of playing games of Little Rock beyond this year?
Yeah, I think there's a contract issue out there that puts us through to 2017 or 18. It's a long-standing history. It's a part of Arkansas football that I understand I don't want to give up as well. I know there's a lot of people that go into it. It logistically was, at one point, it was easier for everybody to get to Little Rock than it was to Fayetteville back in the old days, and a little bit more money-driven because all the money was in Little Rock and not very much in Fayetteville. But times change, times evolve, and the fact of the matter is, I remember being at my last place, and I remember there was a senior class, either my first or second championship year. They literally had lost like maybe 2 games in their entire career at home over a 4-year window, and that's what can happen when you begin to become dominant in your home stadium. So as we've lessened our games with Little Rock, we've actually started practicing more in our indoor in our own stadium to let them know every nook and cranny. I want them to know, I want the kicker to know a 24-yard field goal on the right hash going one direction is totally different than a 24-yard field goal on the other hash, or on the same hash going the other way, and that's how detailed a football team can get if they know it well enough.
Hey, Coach, Laura Goldman, AL.com. Can you kind of reflect back on the craziness of the 4 overtime game against Auburn last year and your expectations heading into Jersey?
If I could remember it all, I wish I could. It was one of those you just kind of, when you're in the moment, you just play, and you just continue to go. I did expect them at some point. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I thought they might go for 2 a little bit earlier than the rules allowed, but they opted not to. I think but our guys just kept battling, kept persevering. What I loved about that game, it was the next man in. I didn't love this part, but I had a young man break his neck, Raleigh Williams, who to this day, as a head coach, that moment probably scared me the most of any time as a head coach assistant. I learned from Hayden Fry a long time ago to go out to my players when they're injured just to find out how they are, because you got a mom and dad watching either in the stands or in the stadium or on TV that want them to know that you're checking on their son, even though I'm not going to give any medical advice. But Raleigh went down right by our sideline. I put my hands on his knees. I said, "You're right, my man, you're right." And he looked at me and said, "Coach, I can't feel my hands." And I remember taking a moment, and I froze up because I didn't want to touch him anymore, because I didn't want to cause anything. And then you realize that there's a moment here we're talking about, paralysis, life, death, something along that lines. They came in, they boarded him. Little did I know, after 4 overtimes, I found out that he broke his neck. He had surgery that they said if he had moved, maybe a quarter of an inch in either direction while he was laying on the field, we might have died or been paralyzed on the field. And to have that moment in the middle of a 4 overtime game that you're talking about, that everybody wants that memory, and to have our team respond the way they did to a guy they love, that's when I began to feel we might have something. And that was right at the beginning of the 6-run stretch where we won 6 of our next 7. So great perseverance. Auburn played a great game. You know, if you didn't care who won, it had to be a heck of a game to watch. And if you liked Arkansas, it was a hell of a game to watch. It's one of those little, I'm sure, it'll last a long time.
Hey, Coach. Chris Womack, CBS 42 in Birmingham. There's a lot of hype around your team last year before the season. You stumbled coming out of the gates, really hit your stride in the middle of the season. How do you carry that success that you had in the latter part over the course of a full season?
Great question. I think twofold. I looked at a lot of different things about camp, about our preparation, about our scheduling, about practice. You know, we played pretty well in our opener, and we stubbed our toe against Toledo and, of course, against Texas Tech. So I think there's some things we as coaches need to do, and me as a head coach in scheduling. But also, I told our kids, and maybe we weren't quite ready for the hype. You know, they were getting patted on the back a little bit, and, you know, they'd won 2 games in the SEC before last year. We were, like I said, an 0-8, 2-6, now to jump to a 5-3. And, you know, now I think we're ready for a little bit of hype, and everybody's giving us 2% chance to win anything. You know, so it works perfect for us. You know, I love the underdog role. I think it's a good one for us. I love the fact that we got 4, you know, very, very talented teams coming to Arkansas. We have Florida, Ole Miss, LSU, and Alabama all coming to our house, and to me that's a distinct advantage. I think the Hogs are going to be ready to call, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. But we have a lot of tough non-conference challenges as well to begin with. But I think the part that's really fun for us is you guys get to know us, or me importantly, what we lose the year before and what we got coming back. A lot of times really isn't going to matter as much as, you know, how our kids are currently playing, because we're going to have a lot of kids that no one has ever heard of come in and start playing really good. And we don't do a lot of, you know, 5-star sexiness or anything like that. We tend to, you know, build our guys up and let them, you know, come out in the field and make a name for themselves.
Front row right here.
Coach, just wanted to address the receiving core because it's so deep, and how much of an advantage is that, having so many options?
We have to make it an advantage. It's something that I've never had the luxury of doing. I've never had as many as, you know, I think we probably have 5, maybe close to 7 SEC receivers that are really good players. I know Keon Hatcher can play, Cody Hollister can play, Jared Cornelius can play, Dominic Reed can play, and Drew Morgan. Those 5 right there, I think, could play anywhere. And then you start throwing in a couple other guys that are really good players starting to come along, as well as some of these incoming freshmen. So that's why we kind of looked around, and we'll figure out our best personnel groupings. We did some out-of-season studying with the NFL to better utilize our wide receivers. I think it's a tremendous challenge for Dan Enos and our offensive staff, but one we're very wired into, and I think Michael Smith, our wide receiver coach, has done an unbelievable job of developing that room. It's been a lot of fun to see him grow maturity-wise, but also as football players.
Back here to your left.
Over here on your left, Coach. Dick Gabriel, WKYT in Lexington. I know you room with Mark Stoops at Iowa. Have you guys ever discussed the odds of 2 roommates at a Big Ten school becoming, first of all, both becoming head coaches, and both becoming head coaches in the Southeastern Conference?
Well, we roomed together on the road when we were assistant coaches because of financial value. I don't think I would ever opt to live with Mark back in the day. I remember he and I both loved to play a deck of cards. I met my wife in Vegas, so I can say it. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but occasionally we were recruiting Minnesota. He was at Wyoming, and we went to a casino and we won a little bit of. At that time, we thought we were really rolling in it. And he said, "Let's go out and celebrate." I said, "Yeah, where do you want to go?" And he's like, "Let's go to Lone Star Steakhouse." I said, "Yes." It was a big time. I think we had the house cab and a chicken breast. We thought we were really rolling in it. But at the time, Iowa, I had to turn in a receipt. But I think Wyoming, they just gave you a value every day. And so we figured if we stayed in the same room, we could share, you know, and make a little. It was a scheme back then. I hope we didn't get. But, you know, Bobby was starting to make a move as a coach. Mike was making a move. We were both young assistants. Mark was really growing fast. You know, he'd been at South Florida. Then he went to Wyoming. He was with Dana. He was making a name for himself. I knew he'd be getting a break. And then I was at K-State, and Mike got the job at Arizona. And then Mark and I were going to go as co-coordinators together to Arizona. I gave Mike my word that I would, and then we beat Oklahoma. Mike was the defense coordinator, and Bobby was the head coach. We beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and Coach Snyder, I went in to tell him I was leaving. He said, "You're not leaving," and he talked me into staying. And then, so the Stoopses didn't talk to me for about 2 years because he pissed one of them off, he pissed them all off. So they were all they get that little banded brother of Youngstown together. And then I don't know how Mark and I still stayed pretty close. And I was actually the one that told him to go get the Florida State D coordinator. He was going to come with me to Wisconsin, and I said, "Hey, knucklehead, there's 2 DC jobs out there that would be branding for you. If you turn it around and do well, you'll get a head job." And they were Notre Dame and Florida State. I think he had an interview at Florida State 3 days later, and he got the head job and then got the Kentucky job. So I'm cheering for him. We talk all the time. Because they're Kentucky and we're Arkansas, we probably won't play for 25 years, the way the SEC computer works. Everybody else gets to play every year, But we work it out, and it's been a lot of fun.
Very, very back.
Hey, Brett. Brian Fenley with ABC in Memphis. Dietrich had spoken about Austin Allen, that he, as a quarterback, he comes in, he brings this swag, like this Cali swag. Do you feel that Austin has got that kind of swag, and is this the kind of swag you want from a starting quarterback for you guys?
Did you say Cali swag?
He said Cali. I think he said Cali swag. Yeah.
And this is coming from a guy from Carrollton, Texas. I would love to have a swag, whatever it is. I don't know where it comes from. We don't have anybody from California that I'm aware of, so I'm confused. But I think what Dietrich is saying, I think Austin has a swag that's him. I think he's a very confident young man. I think he, from his personality to his demeanor to his ability to make decisions, to make plays, he does have that. And I think for Dietrich to recognize that as a defensive player speaks volumes for it. I think our offensive players believe in that as well. So I think there's a lot of good things going in the right direction, and Austin doesn't back away from anything. The thing I think Austin's got going for him, unlike his brother, when BA took over, Hunter Henry was a freshman tight end. Alex Collins was a freshman. We had a bunch of linemen that hadn't proved themselves. We didn't have any wide receivers. Austin's taken over, now we got 4 or 5 good wide receivers. We got a number of NFL potential offensive linemen. We got a tight end that could be the best in the country. We got several good running backs, even though they haven't won a Doker yet or been up for 1,000 yet. They're going to do it, and that's going to speak well for him to perform well.
Back here.
Yeah, that is a great question. I never had been afforded the luxury to recruit Louisiana. When I was at Wisconsin, it just wasn't a geographical or a match for us in recruiting. But a guy that I had gotten to know I was at Kansas State, I got to know Michael Smith, who was at Kansas State, who was a great player there, and he had recruited Louisiana, and very proud of it. I went home with Michael. We were in New Orleans for a coach's clinic, and I went home with Mike, and we were downtown New Orleans, and all these high school coaches are coming up to him, and it was when the first idea that I'm like, man, this guy is really good. And so when I hired him on my staff, our first year, I think we got 4 guys, and all 4 of them were great players. Then the next year, we really didn't get many, and I kind of lit Mike up a little bit and said, come on, man, now for us to have success, we need to have 4 a year from Louisiana, and now we're going beyond that. I mean, last year, Briston Guidry is the best defensive lineman, I think, in the state of Louisiana last year. Got him. Now, he did, I believe, have some of those offers you're talking about. Cole Kelly, he comes in 6'7", 270. Our players have nicknamed him the franchise, and looks incredible in what he's doing. We have 2 linebackers that I'm just excited about, that I think bring a lot to the table, and seeing where they're going. We nearly got a couple other guys, so we're going to keep doing it. I love Louisiana. I love the kids. I love the programs, their coaches. The coaches just, there's a care factor there. When you walk into high school, that coach ain't making a lot of money, but he wears it on his sleeve. That says a lot. And those kids are hungry. They're well coached. Usually they come from a disciplined background that's easy to fit into our program, and they're hungry. And yes, they do get up to play the purple and gold. I understand that, but that's kind of a byproduct of the system.
Last question right here.
It's an obvious statement, but if anything, recent years has taught us that there's no such thing as job security in this league. With your background, having coached in another league, is it, I guess simply, is it just a little different here in terms of the job security factor? I know it matters everywhere, but it seems like it may be different here. I don't know.
You know what? I don't know if it's conference or more school oriented. You know what I mean? I get where you're coming from. I was watching an SEC network the other day, and the Georgia game, and it was an early game, and and you know, Georgia was winning. I'm thinking sitting here, I was Mark Ricknock at Georgia, you know, but it's a decision they want to make. I don't have anything to do with it, you know, and what it is. So I know this. I don't worry about really anybody else's but my own job and where I'm at. I love my AD. We have a new chancellor that is absolutely lights out. But we have a community and environment. In my coaching career, okay, I played at the University of Iowa. Hayden Fry was a coach there for 20 years. The guy that took over for him, Ferentz, has been there now 14, 15 years. I went to Kansas State from Iowa to a head coach that had been there 15, 16 years. He retired and they brought him back, you know. And then I went to Wisconsin and Coach Alvarez was there for 15 years, and then I was there for 7 years. So when you start looking at programs that have 2 coaches over a quarter of a century, those are places, in my opinion, you can build a dynasty, you can build a way of living, you can call it home. That's really what attracted me on the outside as I started looking at it to Arkansas. I thought if I go in there and I do a branding that's unique to us and something that people can be proud of, I think you could create a niche here for a very long time, and that's what we begin to do.
Actually, we got time for one more right here.
Hey, Coach Jacques Doucet, WAFB-TV in Baton Rouge. You've not only beaten LSU the last 2 years, you've beat them pretty handily. Do you think you have their attention? And second, LSU's going to Wisconsin to play at Lambeau Field. Would you like to do something like that?
You know, when I was at Wisconsin, we started talks with LSU for the first one you guys played a couple years ago. That was I was on our radar and something I was looking forward to do. And you know, be a part of it then. Then lo and behold, I get to do it every year. I wasn't quite looking forward to that. I think, you know, we match up well against them, but it isn't. I know you said we beat them soundly. I think that both of those games have been an ebb and flow game until the very end, and then there's been a break at the end that people just kind of, you know, let it go on. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for Les. Obviously, if you look at the record and the talent they have and the things they've been able to accomplish, they're second to none. And when I came into this league, you know, them and Alabama were the two that I thought we had to be able to say we can beat these people. Otherwise, we'll never win an SEC title. So it's always going to be a tough one. Our fans get into it, man. That boot thing, even like in recruiting, our kids all talk about the boot all the time. If we have a fan come through our building and they see that boot, they literally, I think I've seen like a dozen women faint. You know, they're just. And I'm like, it's a boot, you know. But the concept of it's really cool. I think we like having a little bit of a rivalry with them, and hopefully it means a lot to them because I know it means a lot to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck this year.